Hey everyone, thanks for joining today. I decided to use the headset, hoping that may help with the audio. We'll see how that goes. For anyone who's just come across my channel, thank you for joining. My name's Kerrie. I sat down and did a meditation, and following that meditation, I asked my guides to step in to see if they could give me any further information on this case. It has been going on for a while now, and I did want to provide some further details, if possible, before the new year for these four. The whole situation is just tragic, and I'm hoping that this information will reach the right people and that it may be able to assist in furthering the investigation. What I do is I write everything down. I am a psychic. I wouldn't call myself a medium. I work with my own guides and angels. Sometimes spirit of those who have passed over do step in, and that is really up to them, but I don't call on them because I feel that by calling on them all the time actually holds them in that earthbound energy, and I don't like to do that. So I do rely on my guides to provide information wherever possible. I do my best to interpret. I see, hear, and feel, so it is like putting some puzzle pieces together. So I do my best to interpret that information as accurately as possible for these readings. And as I'm receiving the information, I just jot it down in my book. So I will be reading from the information that I received. So again, this reading was for Madison, Kaylee, Ethan, and Xana, also referred to as the IDAHO 4. The first information that I received through this really was the same or very similar information to what I got in the first reading, which for me is a validation of that interpretation. So I will share that again here. I do believe that the person that did this was male, wasn't overly tall for a male, maybe 5'8", 5'9". I also saw that they had very short hair, so it's either a crew cut or a shaved head. So I'm hoping that that may help a little bit. They're also seen as very quiet and polite, and they're unassuming. So people wouldn't connect this with the person that they know or see in front of them. But what Spirit showed me was Jekyll and Hyde. That was the reference that they gave me. So it's like this person does have two sides to their personality, and one of those sides is that they're very mature, they're very respectful, they're well regarded by people that would know them, and they wouldn't ever think this of this particular person. The other persona is very dark. They may act more immature or younger. They're more spontaneous in what they do, but they are scheming. So they're very thought out and scheming, and I do feel that there is a battle that occurs between these two personalities. So the rational side, the kind side that wouldn't play this out, and then the other side, which is very much unleashed, following triggers. And I do believe that there's triggers. So they could have PTSD, but there does seem to be triggers there. I also saw a visual, and I drew it as an arrow. So it's like an arrow with the feathers. It could even be a dart. You know how the dart has the tail on the end of it. So it could be a dart that they were showing me. Now, what I will say is I am not sure if this relates to the person playing darts or that they have done archery, one of those two, or whether it relates to that they have a tattoo of a dart or of an arrow on them. So I will look for further information on that. But I'm not sure which one of those two it was, but they were certainly showing me that symbol, and it seems significant to this particular person. They would have a familiar face, but they're not known. Like their name would not be known by any of the victims in this case. So they weren't personally known by Kaylee or Maddie or Xana or Ethan. So that makes it a lot harder, I think, for law enforcement who are trying to find a connection. But definitely a familiar face. I do believe they are still in the area. They haven't suddenly left or moved on. I do believe that they're still in the area. And I feel that they would be in their mid-30s, although they may look younger and sometimes act younger. But I do feel that it's that age range, probably about 35, and that is consistent with the information that I received in the first reading that I did here. Do believe they listen a lot and they take in a lot of the conversations. And again, I feel that it was something about not just one or the other here with Maddie or Kaylee. I actually believe that the two of them together really did trigger him, not necessarily one more than the other. And I believe that this trigger, and this is consistent with information that I've received earlier, I believe that the trigger is related to a previous relationship they had. So they may have been in a long-term relationship or were previously married, and that person was a flirt or very out there, like the attention that men gave them. That was very triggering for them, and the relationship did break down. They did have an affair, it did break down. Now, I do believe there could have been a protection order against this person, that they may have made threats at some point to the other person in this relationship, so there may be something that could be followed up there. But I don't think they ever followed through on that. But certain behaviours or certain things which I am not, please let me say, I'm not saying in any way that Maddie or Kaylee's behaviour was any different to any young girl of that age, just outgoing, confident in themselves, would speak up, say what they thought. There was a high confidence there. But this person was triggered by it because it really reminded them of their ex-relationship. And in fact, it may not have been Kaylee or Maddie, like any female that they see as being, and again, this word comes in, show pony. That came to me last time as well, and I've written it down again here. Anyone that they see as sort of like a show-off or full of themselves or a flirt, if they interpret that behaviour that way, it will trigger them. So I do believe that was a catalyst here, and they had seen that behaviour over a period of time. They certainly knew where they lived. He is very aware of them. I don't think he lives too far away from where they are. And I did say that I believe that he is still in the area. Now, this person could be ex-military or has a fascination with military. So war movies, horror movies, does seem desensitized to that sort of thing. So committing this crime actually didn't faze them. It was almost like going to work. And I know that sounds horrible, but I'm trying to get into the mental place of where that person was who committed this. But it definitely was triggered. However, the attack itself was calculated. Now, they waited for a time where they knew or thought that the house was predominantly empty. And I know from things that I have heard about this case that it was considered a bit of a party house. So they were looking for that opportunity. They also knew that, just because of the time of year it was, that if they were going to follow this through, it needed to be soon. Now, I also got through that they may have applied to law enforcement. They may have tried to become a police officer or security, because they showed me uniforms. So I do believe they may have tried, but I don't think that they were taken in. Now, this could be related to a previous history of PTSD, or if they were in the military, that they were let go from military because of ongoing PTSD issues. Now, most people wouldn't even see that in this person, but there are certain triggers that bring that through. And I think for that reason that they didn't go into that area, which is probably a really good thing. But I do believe there was, or it could even have been, that the previous protection order against them stopped that moving forward. That could be it as well. So there is something in there, but I think that could be worth looking into. I do have them definitely there. What I was shown was that they were at the corner bar or had frequented the corner bar. So they are a familiar face in that area. So they have seen them several times before. Now, I believe that night they could have even been at the bar. They knew there wasn't a lot happening because they're listening to the conversations. They knew there wasn't a lot happening at the house. And I feel that they left that bar quite early on, not long after they actually arrived. So if police are looking at, or law enforcement are looking at CCTV footage or any footage from that bar, they need to look earlier in the night, even prior to the girls getting there, or looking for someone that leaves not long after they arrive, because I think that's going to be key here. And I think that, as the reason why it was so urgent to get that first one out is because of that time frame. I think they're looking at the wrong time frame for any footage or any sightings in the area. Now, I do believe that they're in walking distance. I did not see a car. I was not shown a car. But I do believe that they walked to their own residence to prepare for this and then went from there to the house. I did see them going in through the top balcony, through an open door on the top balcony. So, look, I know people are probably looking downstairs, but I can only give you what I'm seeing, and that is I feel they went in there and they waited. Like, the patience was incredible, and there wasn't any level of anxiety or nervousness about the situation. It was cold, it was calculated, it was prepared, and I believe that they lay in wait, and also lay in wait for quite some time after everyone started coming home. So I believe the house was empty when they first got there. They weren't looked for, they were hiding. Now, I do see dark clothing, I do see a ski mask, but I also see that a hoodie might have been pulled over that ski mask as well. I also felt that the weapon that was used, the handle was taped. And then what I was shown by my guides was a tennis racket. So I know that there is like a tape that people put on tennis rackets to improve grip. And I feel that was done with this knife to improve the grip. And it was calculated to use a knife because of limiting noise through the attack. So the whole thing was well thought out, well planned, well calculated. This person is quite sick in the mind, but they do see themselves as vigilante, doing the world a favour, doing men of the world a favour. I know that sounds horrible, because I don't feel that these girls or anyone in the home, anyone at all, deserved this. But in their head, that was the thinking that I got there. So they're not remorseful in any way, and they're not panicked about being caught either. In fact, they feel really confident they won't be caught. And I think that's because there's no clear connection between this person and any of the victims. I don't feel that they're closely following this case either. I don't feel like they're trolling TikTok or YouTube channels, or I don't feel that they're doing that. I feel that they just feel like it was a job that they needed. The job is done, and they've sort of moved on from that. And that's a horrible thing to say, because you would think there would have to be some guilt or remorse, but I'm just not feeling that. I'm just not getting that at all. And they're confident that law enforcement really don't have anything. They have listened to some and heard some news reports, because it is everywhere. So they have heard some of the, say, the police reports, etc., about it. But they're quite happy with this talk around town that is linking it to the sorority or friends that they know, because it puts them even further away from being found out for this. So in their mind, they're not worried at all. You may not even see a change in their behaviour at all because of that. Now, what I did see was that Kaylee and Madison were attacked first, and he did wait for quite a while when the lights went out before he did that. He wanted them to be asleep. He wanted it to be as quiet as possible. Now, I believe one of them, they weren't aware. So now I do get confused, and I'm sorry, between the two girls. They're very similar, and so I can't say which one it was, but I do feel that the first person that they attacked wouldn't have been able to scream. And I think you understand, what I'm saying. The throat was the first injury. I also believe that they were then moved from the bed, because I do have them on the floor at that point afterwards. Now, I think whoever else was in that room at the same time, whether it was Madison or Kaylee that was still in the bed, may have heard the movement of that person to the floor and stirred a little bit at that point. They may have seen the person and put their in shock, their hand up. There may be a defensive wound on the hand, but again, it was extremely quick to be overpowered, and again, the throat. There was certainly a lot of other injuries to the body, which was a trigger from the frustration of the previous relationship. So for law enforcement, it could appear like a crime of passion for that reason, but it's actually them seeing this previous relationship and the same behaviours that put them all into the one person in his head at the time of the attack. Now, I do believe from there they just intended to clean up, and they were aware of the house. They had watched them for a while. They knew where everybody was. and they knew the layout of that house somehow as well, although I don't feel that they'd been there at the same time as the people currently staying in the house were living there. It may have been at an earlier time, but they knew the layout. Now, I do believe they've gone downstairs, and I have them cleaning off the knife. And I do believe it was only one weapon that was used, not multiple, just one. And it seems to be quite large. And as I said, it had a grip around that had been put around it. Now, I do see them cleaning this off. Now, what I was seeing was quite like a bigger basin. I don't think it was a bathroom. It could have been a laundry, like more of a laundry tub, because it was a bigger basin that was used to start washing off. Now, at this point, I believe that Ethan has come into that space and has passed that space. And I do believe that the perpetrator heard that door. When they heard it, they did turn off the water and move back. I think that Ethan looked in to see who was in there, and that's when I believe he was attacked. I don't believe his body was found in the bedroom. I believe it was found more in that living space area, and I think it could have been moved as well from where the attack actually took place. From there, they have then gone on, and I believe Xana was the last victim in this case. Now, I will say that they weren't sorry about that. It was, and I hate to say this because it just, for me personally, the lack of value on a person's life is horrible here. And I just can't fathom how someone's mind could think so carelessly about the value of life. But that's the state of mind that they were in, and I'm sorry to say this, but in the perpetrator's mind, it was collateral damage. Now, Ethan may be the only one that actually saw their face. May have lifted the mask as they were cleaning, the ski mask as they were cleaning that knife off. And so therefore there was no choice, in doing that. However, he was already annoyed at the two of them from earlier in the night, because again, Spirit was showing me that, look, they were just doing as teenagers do. They were a bit amorous. He lying, well, waiting, hiding out and waiting for the other two, could hear that going on, and it annoyed him. So to take them both out was almost like, well, you deserve it anyway, which is just absolutely horrible, I know, and I hate saying it. It makes it sound like I'm saying it callously, but I'm sorry, I'm just connecting with their energy in bringing this through, and in what I had written from my guides as to what their mental state was. So I'm really sorry to put it that way, but it just is as I'm seeing it. Now, they also then took me back to this taping, and when they said how calculated this was around trying to be extremely careful about not leaving any trace evidence behind. And for what would have been such a horrific scene and a bloody scene, that's not easy to do. But I also see them taping like their jacket or their long sleeve shirt or jumper, taping it to the edge of the gloves, so there was no distance, and also the pants, taping it to their boots, and I do believe they were wearing a boot. Now, this wasn't like a like a steel cap boot or something like that, maybe more like a hiking style boot, but it being taped to the boot. And I believe that that was done on purpose. They were trying to reduce the possibility of leaving any evidence behind. They also didn't leave quickly after that. I was shown again that they did go back to that, and I'm going to say laundry because it's a deeper tub, and they cleaned everything off again. I also see them getting changed, that they had a lighter clothes underneath or with them, and this time I was being shown like a light grey tracksuit type pants and top, and it was a lighter grey. Anything that they were wearing during the attack had been removed. There may have been some of that tape left behind, and if there was, that's going to be a really good way perhaps for the police to find some DNA from some of the tape that they used to wrap around the boots and the sleeves of what they were wearing at the time. That may be a good way for the police to identify DNA in this case. So there may have been that left behind. So I did write that down, tape, question mark. So I felt that. But they totally got changed and put everything into a bag and very casually left the premises. And I believe leaving the premises was from that first floor, from the middle floor, through those glass doors out the back and towards the bush at the back of the house. So that would be the direction. Now again, I don't see any car. Now I know that it has been reported that the police were interested in trying to find this white Elantra. I'm sorry, I'm not getting any of that. I'm not seeing any. I'm not saying they don't have a vehicle. What I am saying is I did not see one at the scene. I did not see them get in one to leave. I saw them walking. So I really don't feel that they were that far away. I did then ask my guides for any additional information that, how can Ellie find the person that did this? So I do believe again, and I said this, they need to look at earlier footage at that pub, at the corner pub, and they need to look for later footage, almost closer to first light in the morning is what I was seeing. The sky was definitely starting to get that little bit lighter when I saw them. And look, they wouldn't have looked suspicious to anyone or even been brought back to mind because they were wearing a much lighter colour, totally different clothing from what they were wearing during that attack. And definitely cleaned up. They took their time doing that. So I think they need to look earlier and later, and I think that's important. Boots was the other thing that Spirit gave me, the boots. There might have been a footprint found, so there could be a way to match that, or part of the tread found. So there could be a way to match that, although I do think that could have been smeared, but it may help them. Now this person still has those boots. I feel like they cleaned them off a bit, but they've got them. They didn't get rid of them. So there could be a way to match those. I also believe they still have the weapon. They still have the knife. This is a very particular knife. Either it was given to them by someone within their family that has military background, and again they gave me this military connection, or that they were in the military. So there is a connection to this particular knife. It's not something you could get easily, this particular knife. Now there could also be DNA possibly found on Ethan. He was less prepared. The perpetrator who did this was less prepared for that attack at the time. And so slight possibility there that there could be some DNA found there, but that's what they were showing me is that Ethan may be the key to that. CCT from the bar, do that earlier and look for someone that was there and left shortly after the two girls arrived. I think that's going to be important. They are going to be hard to identify. And, well, sorry, I wrote that down and my guides corrected me at that point. They actually told me they think that law enforcement may identify them or may have a lead as to who they think did this. They just don't have enough evidence to get a warrant to search. So that's going to be key. So that they need some additional information there. Now, there was no phone on them. I don't think there's going to be any tracking from like pings of phones on towers or anything like that. I don't believe they had that with them. They do live alone. And I did hear workshop noises. Now, I don't think they work in that space, but they may be quite good with mechanics, and they could work on just backyard car repairs, because I did hear that sort of machinery, so I don't know whether that could also be a link and a connection there. They did say to me kitchen, cafe could be the sort of work that they're in. There was a link there to food and working with food. So there was a link there. And again, I think that they should check for people that may have applied to become a police officer and who or applied for security jobs that were knocked back. Now, that knockback could have either been because of this PTSD that was previously identified, or it could be because of the protection order that was previously against this person. So there was a question mark in the personality testing. Now, I really hope that this information is helpful and of some assistance, or if someone was seen in grey tracksuit pants, in any cameras around about first light, close to first light in the morning, that person be looked into. I'm again so sorry, and my heart goes out to the families. This is a horrible time, and I really hope that there's closure in this case, and I really hope that they catch the person responsible, because if they were to see someone that looks similar to the two girls, to Kaylee and Madison, in the future, that displayed those sorts of behaviours, they could then go through this and do this all over again. So I truly hope that they're found soon. Thank you so much for listening. If this resonates or connects with anything, please pass any additional information you may have on to law enforcement. I will pass this information on as a tip. I'm hoping that law enforcement maybe use some of it as a tool. I know it can't be used in a court of law. I'm very well aware of that. But maybe used as a tool towards how they're investigating this case. Thank you, everyone. Take care.